summit for me is all about self-rediscovery. And for me, I think because a lot of people come to the idea of self-rediscovery or self-discovery with the idea of kind of fixing and changing who we are in human form. And that's kind of where I was before I came across the principles, which is kind of where most people are, I guess, as well. But for me, then it became more about seeing like who we really are beyond that. So that's why it feels like a rediscovery for me, because it's like, well, we were always that person, but we just maybe didn't see it. And then from there, it feels like we can kind of dance in whoever we want to be. So that's kind of what the summit is about. And it's been really lovely kind of having different speakers on to share about their own journeys with that. But for me, it's like we can really embrace being human. And so that's why I'm really excited to have you here to talk about that, because that feels like a huge insight that I had with the principles, because yeah, I'll go into that a bit later, but yeah, we've been exploring a load of different topics, which are obviously all pointing to the same wisdom. We're live every Friday, and I'm just usually jumping on live in the Self-Rediscovery Facebook community as well. But yeah, I'm really excited that you're here with us, Karen, today. I know we only met sort of a few weeks ago, didn't we? But our conversation then was kind of like a bubble of fun. So I was like, this is going to be cool. Yeah, so I'll just formally introduce you, I guess, before we go on, and then I'll just let you share about you and your journey. So you are a registered nurse for over 25 years with specialties in intensive care, trauma and flight nursing, and you're a catalyst for transforming the way we deliver and conceive of healthcare and well-being. Put simply, the mind and body are not disconnected, and when misunderstandings of the mind are healed, there is a profound healing effect on the body. You're a self-described science geek with an insatiable appetite for all things spiritual and biological, and your ability to distill and communicate your understanding in a simple, metaphorical and often hilarious way is what makes you impactful as a healthcare visionary and transformational coach. And when we were chatting as well, what I liked particularly was that you described yourself as a transformational comedian, which feels very fitting.
Yeah, well, actually, yeah, that's not mine. That's I've been described as, because I think it was Michael Neal who first said my brand of transformational comedy.
I love that though. Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, it's and I love that you invited me, and I love what you just said, and this whole topic of conversation, because like that situational comedy, when we look at what we're doing, ask if it's true, and then kind of laugh at what we're doing after we've discovered that it's not true. Like just that big mouthful of a bio that you read. Okay, I had that on an old website, and on my new website, I say, I'm not going to write my bio in the third person like an asshole. Because as we do, we want it to be like we're writing it.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody writes their own bio unless they've had a measure of success and can have some kind of business manager do that for them. But you're trying to write it about yourself as if it's not you writing it, but everybody knows you're writing it. And so that's why they're so hard to write, because it's so, and it's just like looking at even something like that, is so funny. I caught myself, it was 2 days ago, I posted on Facebook about, it's my daughter's birthday. We're having dinner at the dinner table, and you hear this frantic pounding on the door. So we get up and I go answer it, and these two bikers are freaking out because they came down off the path ends in my cul-de-sac. So the trailhead and the, end, whatever. And there was a baby rattlesnake sunning itself in a pile of leaves, but they were coming to the door. The guy wanted a shovel because he was going to bash it over the head and kill the thing. I'm like, no. Oh. So my first instinct, I grew up with reptiles. I have 3 older brothers. My mom always said that she had 4 sons and I was the only one who grew boobs. But like we grew up with lots of animals in our house all the time. And so I'm like, no. I grab a Tupperware and a lid, and I go over to the thing and I just put the Tupperware over the thing and and the guy goes, wow, that was badass. and then the fire, it's a big long thing. You could go find it on Facebook if you want. But the next day, it was a couple of days later, I was on a call in the morning with a group, and I was like, we're talking about Facebook likes. I'm like, I think I did that, because they were saying, oh my gosh, that was so brave. How could you have done that? I'm like, I think I just wanted Facebook likes. Like, I think the courage to do that was actually driven by the allure and the dopamine hits of Facebook. Like, I mean, I leave it open for new discovery, but I can't deny that there might have been some kind of drive there.
I love that. That's so cool. Yeah, no, definitely. And yeah, to be described by Michael Neal as a transformational comedian is pretty cool.
Well, he only described me that way to me, so I just take his word and run with it. But what was your original question?
Well, there wasn't a question yet. But it is so true. Like when you kind of come across the principles and you realize how we're creating our experience and how we're just making everything up. I find that as well. I find myself kind of laughing at myself and what I'm creating. So yeah, it's such a good point. But yeah, firstly, I guess what I usually invite people to do is to share a little bit of their personal journey and their kind of personal story. And again, on your website, you were talking about your profound moment of coming home as a profound moment of snot and tears as well. So I just wondered if you'd share a little bit about that to start with, maybe.
Yeah, like start with the puddle of snot and tears moment, lying on the floor of my master bedroom closet. I just gotten home. I was 37. It was 2011. I just been through I was learning to be, I spit myself out of the medical system, out of the hospital medical system, because I always saw that when people had a healthcare professional in their family, if the patient themselves was, or they had one in their family, they always had better outcomes. Shorter length of hospital stay, lower mortality rates. They didn't get the infections and everything because their family member, the nurse in the family or the doctor who was the patient, always said, hey, don't touch me unless you've washed your hands, or I want a second opinion, or you're not supposed to be doing that, or swab the port on the thing. They knew the standard of care that should be delivered, so they had better outcomes. And I'm like, that's not fair. That, it's like, in this country, it's written into the Constitution, if you can't afford an advocate, an attorney, one will be provided for you. Well, why is that? It's because the judicial system and the legal language is so convoluted and complicated, you couldn't possibly put on a good defense for yourself. So, you need an attorney, you need a representative. Well, the medical system is just as convoluted and complicated and scary and dangerous. I mean, medical malpractice is the third leading cause of death in this country.
Wow.
But yeah, behind cancer and heart disease, it's medical error. And so I thought, well, and in the judicial system, your risk is fine or freedom. And in the medical system, it's injury or death. So I'm like, well, that's not right. So I spit myself out and started my own business as a private patient advocate, and that people could hire me like an attorney to kind of manage their medical everything.
Yeah.
And I went through this course through the University of Arizona, started by a woman named Karen DiMarco, I thought that the course was going to be about the legal ins and outs of being a private patient advocate. I thought that was going to be kind of what it was, but that was like maybe 10% of it. It was really about functional medicine, epigenetics, nutrigenomics, systems biology, all of these really fancy terms, which fed my geek. But it all pointed to root cause, like why are people sick in the first place? Now that was in the beginning of 2011. I went through that course, and I'll kind of shorten the story. At that time in my life, I had my youngest child at 2007, and I never quite bounced back from it. I was always an athlete, always working out, always had a lot of, whatever. I put a whole lot of energy into everybody's perspective of me my entire life. And it was, I made up that, and if I have to be a certain way so that people don't leave me behind. I have to fill these expectations. So in order to not be left behind, people have to like me. And in order for people to like me, I have to be thin. I have to be pretty. I have to be smart. I have to be witty. I have to do all these things. Then I have to be this kind of mom and this kind of wife. Those get on later. But in order to do all these things, there were like, those things had babies. And then there was like, my whole life was checking boxes all day long, every day. Am I doing okay? Don't want to get it wrong. don't want to disappoint anyone. Everyone has to like me, you know? And I didn't know I was working so hard at that. That's just what it felt like to be Karen.
Yeah.
But it was going through this program. I was fascinated with the salivary assay. And what that is, it's like neuroadrenal testing. So your nervous system has a gas pedal and a brake, and there's chemistry associated with each. And, you know, your cortisol and you can check your adrenals this way either. And I knew there was something in it for me because nobody knew how sick I was. I hid it. Like for me, it was like somebody had turned up the gravity, and it got worse and worse every year. And then I couldn't recover from, like, I had this candida overgrowth, and I had a chronic Lyme disease. Like, I wasn't getting every little knock that life gave me. I kind of just stayed there. I had been bulimic. That was part of the being thin and pretty thing. I was bulimic since the age of 11, and at 37, and I gained a measure of white knuckle control over it, because I'll be shamed if people find out I'm still thinking this way and behaving this way a couple times. Just keep it in the fairway, Karen. Keep it in the fairway. You know, this too far this way, it'll kill you, and that would be shameful. And too far this way, you'll get too big and ugly and people won't like you. So, you know, this was how my mind all day long, every day, was just all about food and how do I look and am I doing okay? And I didn't know that being on red alert for what people thought of me all day long, every day, was killing me, literally killing me. And when I was learning to do this salivary assay, I had a mentor who was a guy who's like one of the best in the world, and he was mentoring me, and I was my first patient. So I got the test back and we look at it together, and he looks at my test and goes, "You're a big faker." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Karen, I have people come back with tests 50% better than this, and they're catatonically, suicidally depressed. They have no motivation to do anything. They're sick. They're chronic fatigue syndrome." And he said that, and I was like, because I was so exhausted all the time, brain fog so bad. And some of the people on this call have heard the story a number of times, but I used to travel. I used to go around with a sticky notepad. I called it my external hard drive, because I couldn't remember anything. Like, my kids were the only ones at school without a Halloween costume. And I would lose the ends of moments. The scariest one was waking up at the mall with my 3 kids, not waking up from sleep, but waking up, just like coming to and going, how did we get here? Like, I couldn't remember, but every day was like that. Like, I'd lose the ends of moments. And he said, so Jess said, he's like, "You come off like this together, put together, all go, no quit, never let them see you sweat, bubbly, funny thing." And he's like, "You're dying inside." He's like, "This is why you're not getting better and coming, I'm like, and all of a sudden that white noise of what it felt like to be Karen, that I didn't even see what I'd been doing, came down to this loud roar, and I could see it. And it was so scary to think, okay, I can't do that anymore. And if I don't check all those boxes all the time every day, then I'm going to get left behind and people aren't going to like me. And the thought of disappointing someone was like a death sentence to me. But I knew I couldn't keep it up. So it was like just this puddle of snot and tears, surrender moment. I'm just going to be that mom. I'm just going to be that person. I'm just going to be, everyone's going to leave me. I'm going to get divorced and my kids won't like me, and all the moms won't like me, and, I'll be shamed. But Nicole, it was the first time in my life, well, the first time except since I had been a child, probably, that I felt what it was like to be me.
Wow.
It was like all that stuff went, all that thinking and holding this, I call it the gap, holding the gap open between who I truly was and who I thought I ought to be. Yeah. And I thought that if I did all this stuff, then I'd get to this feeling, then people will like me, and just keep maintaining that all the time, and you're safe and you're fine. But what I found out in an instant, in a day, that the feeling I was seeking all along was never to be achieved by doing all those things. It was actually achieved by stopping it all.
Yeah.
And it was 3 weeks later, after kind of having all this peace in my head, all this space that was no longer occupied by all those algorithms, I was better. I my energy was back. My brain was back. I didn't even think about food. That was the last day that was the end of my bulimia. That day it had started. I knew the day it started, and that was the day it ended. I never thought about food or like that ever again.
Yeah.
And since then, life has just been more of those gap closing moments. I think they happen for the rest of your life, but that was the big.
Yeah. And so you hadn't even like come across the principles at this point, or had you?
No, actually the principles was I got better.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know what had made me better. I do 7 or 9 years later, because I also at that time started supplementing and whatever. So I attributed this awakening to a number of things I was doing.
Yeah.
But as John L. Macadam, I did research with him in 2017 in chronic fatigue, and he's the one who kept pointing it out to me. Yeah, well, how long did you take those supplements? And I'm like 30 days. Why'd you stop? Because I felt better. Like, but that's not it, John. That can't all be it. Anyway, what was the question? Oh, the 3 principles. I was doing some corporate, so the patient advocacy business was going, and I was doing some lecturing. I called it the broccoli dialogue. I was doing some corporate wellness stuff and teaching, about nutrition and epigenetics and stress management and all this stuff. And I come across Anita Moorjani's book, Dying to Be Me. I read it in a day at stoplights, and the woman's cancer went away after she had a near-death experience and a massive insight. And without further intervention, she woke up from a coma. Her family was about to pull the plug, basically. And she wakes up and she's cancer-free in like 30 or 60 days or something like that, without any further. And all this stuff I'm telling people they need to do to be healthy: detoxify your home, what you're putting on your skin, eat this way, stress management, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, she stopped meditating. And actually, she all her whole life she was like this strict vegan, mind your tox load and da 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 da. She stopped all that, and her cancer went away like that. And I'm like, what am I doing? So, and then it started to put it together, kind of what was going on, what happened with me. It wasn't a near-death experience or anything like that. But anyway, I started doing research because I wanted to create a program into the stuff of radical remission, because if she's capable of it, and then I go down this rabbit hole of research of all these other thousands and thousands and thousands of cases of radical remission after people saw something profound, a huge insight. So I was trying to harness the language to really understand it for myself. What was going on in the biology? I got that something massive spiritually happened and psychologically happened, but how did that affect their biology? So that was the research I was doing, and I came across the principles. John L. Macadam first. He said, have you ever heard of Sydney Banks? No, who's Sydney Banks? Well, he's this enlightened. I'm like, no, I don't want to hear any more about enlightened people. I've been down the enlightened people pathway, because for like 3 years after that incident with me, can you hear my guinea pig? It's having some kind of traumatic event. But after that, I went down, I did everything, shamanism. And, I took all these courses and got certified. I collect sea glass and certifications, crystal essence, flower essence therapy, shamanism. This is like Byron Katie's School for the Work, Lester Levinson's, the Sedona method, like did everything. Right. Yeah. And then I was kind of just like, I've had it. No more enlightened people. Yeah. I'm so confused about, do I surrender to the grandmothers and grandfathers of the 4 directions, or is it the enlightened the ascended masters? Like, okay, who do I pray to? Because if I have to pray to myself, that's bad news. So anyway, back to the story. So John backs off and go, okay, have you ever heard of Michael Neal? And I'm like, no.
Do I have to?
Who's Michael Neal?
Yeah.
He's not. I'm like, is he enlightened? And then he told me about what is it? What's the flagship book? Wait, hang on.
Inside Out
Revolution. The Inside Out Revolution. Because I remember it was the word revolution.
Yeah.
Because there was that really appealed to me, and that was another book I read in a day at stoplights. And that was kind of how I came across the principles. And
Yeah.
in John and everything like that. But it was the thing already happened. I
Yeah.
already saw what I needed to see.
Yeah.
What I loved about the three principles as compared to all the other permalits, that's my word for people who are permanently enlightened, because I think we all, chicklet is an enlightened woman.
Yeah.
Template is what most of us are, temporary enlightened. Testiclet, sorry, I had to do it. It's an enlightened man. But anyway, yeah, I'll stop there. Sydney Bank, the three principles is just a very simple language to point to the truth that they are all also pointing to.
Yeah, and I love that because and it's so often when people come on the summit that they're like, well, yeah, I kind of was, had this insight before I came to the three principles, and then it just kind of put language to it in a way. And it kind of reinforces that point for me that like we don't need to get the principles for us to be able to find freedom. It's just something that helps explain kind of how life works. So I love that because it's again, it's that kind of reinforcement of that this isn't, the principles isn't something that we do, it's just an understanding.
Yeah, and that's a really important thing to say. I mean, so many people treat the three principles as understanding, as a roadmap to somewhere, when it's really just a description of what is.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to get gravity in order to stick to the ground.
Yeah.
It's just a description of what is, and it's still operating even if you don't know it or don't believe in it.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's so cool. You shared a quote earlier, which was, destroy your reputation, be notorious. I have tried prudent planning long enough. From now on, I'll be mad. I love that. But I was just wondered if you could kind of explain what that means for you.
A couple stories come to mind. A less personal. I don't know if I'm going to share that one, but it's pretty recent, so I probably will. But the less personal one is this is just an example of what that quote means to me. I'm sitting outside at a cafe in Boulder, Colorado called The Kitchen Next Door, and it's Monday. And I really felt like a Bloody Mary. And I was working with my dear friend Carl McGeely on a project, and we went there for lunch, to take a break and have some lunch. And I'm like, man, it's Monday and it's such a gorgeous day. I wish it was Sunday. And I'm like, you know what? It's Sunday. And I ordered a Bloody Mary, and I'm like, because I knew like I probably wouldn't want to go back to work. I'd probably end up having two, and I would either fall asleep or feel like having another, so I'm probably not going to do that great at work. But you know what? We'd worked all week, and I'm like, oh, it's Sunday. And then we did this whole sketch. We hit record on my video. We did this whole sketch on days of the week and create your calendar. Now, I don't know if it was his originally, or he saw it from the comedian Tommy Tiernan, or they both downloaded this, or we all downloaded it from the Akashic Records. I have no idea like where the thing for this was, but I remember hearing Tommy Tiernan talk about it after we made this video and going, did I get that from him, or did I actually download this from the Akashic Records? But we were sitting there and going, okay, you know what? Why are the three best days of the week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all together? They should be spread around. I mean, like Monday, it should go like Monday and then Sunday and then Tuesday and then Friday. Like, why would we do that? And it's like, well, the Romans did that, that whole lunar clock you guys have. No. We're going to change things around. Like, well, they could do it, so can I.
And who decided that those days were going to be the fun days? Like,
I know.
Pick that up.
Yeah. So from now on, everyone else is going to think you're nuts, but I'll be mad if I can have a Bloody Mary on a Monday. We can change it to Sunday. Because, baby steps. If you can't actually just be bold enough to have a Bloody Mary in the middle of the day on a Monday, well, baby steps. Just change the day to Sunday. Choose your mood.
Yeah. So is it really kind of about living in your truth, dropping that illusion of who we think we ought to be and giving ourselves permission to just be who we want? Is that kind of, because I'm kind of hearing that in some ways in what you're saying.
In all things.
Yeah.
What's asking, is that true? Is that true for me? It's my favorite question. I mean, is that true? I'll be in the middle of a sentence, and like, I remember a couple months ago, somebody, Frank, my Frank was saying, we were arguing about something. He's like, well, you're being very defensive. And I said, I'm not. Hang on. Is that true? No, I am being defensive. Yeah, I'm being defensive because I'm defending myself. Why is that always such a bad thing? You know, like all of a sudden it hit me like just another, you know, like this meme, this thing we all buy into, that being defensive is a bad thing. Well, if you really look at it, what does it mean? It means you're defending yourself.
Yeah.
Of course I'm defending myself, you know, like stupid stuff like that. Don't go to bed angry. Well, why would you force yourself to try to make an argument when both your heads are full and you're feeling combative and competitive, and try to work it out before you can go to sleep? That's so stupid. When you wake up and everything's better, like everything's better when the sun comes up, until you reattach all the things that were wrong from the day before.
Yeah.
But you know,
that, you know, because it's so often in the principles we kind of hear that, you know, peace and love is our true nature, and even that can kind of feel like we have to return to that, like which, you know, it is for me. For me that feels true, like, but also for me also that our true nature is joy, and a lot of other things. It's kind of like anything we really want it to be. It's like,
well, our true nature is everything that nature is.
yeah.
I mean, nature is the majesty of sunsets and rainbows and waterfalls and mountains and whatever. And it's also that lion tearing the throat out of the zebra, you know, and it's earthquakes and fires and tsunamis. I mean, if we're made in God's image or true nature or whatever your word is, then we have I was just coaching someone the other day, and she was saying a lot of people are coming to me with this, how do I be myself? I'm so afraid that if I let this thing out, you know, like there's a thing to let out. Like they've made up, okay, one day, like there's this huge leap to make over there. Like I'm this way today, and all of a sudden I'm just going to explode into something else, you know, like that's what people make up in their heads. Well, but her thing was, what if I'm evil? And I said, oh, I'll take care of that right now. You are. So am I. So, I mean, we all have a little Hitler in us. I mean, we all have the thing inside of us that is capable of great evil. But the good news is we all have something inside of us that is, to me, the most powerful thing, or when we let it in. I love the interpretation of the 10 Commandments. That's when you take God into your heart. It's not thou shalt. You know, we grew up saying thou shalt not, like we're children that can't be trusted. And so here's the rules that you got to follow, kids, or you're going to be damned for eternity. Yeah. So make sure thou shalt not, thou shalt, don't kill, don't covet, don't da-da-da. But when you close the gap between who you truly are and who the world told you ought to be, when you are in that space and you are full of yourself and not holding you away from your true self, when you are full of yourself, thou shalt. It's a thou shall. It's a signpost, not a command. You wouldn't even think about lying or stealing or killing, and you wouldn't even think about coveting, because when you're full, you don't need anything else. You already have the feeling, and that feeling of gratitude. Like I thought my whole life, I have to do all these things in order to get to there. Yeah. Well, I was there. It was there waiting for me the whole time when I stopped running away from it.
Yeah, that's very cool. And it's kind of like embracing it, like what we're here to talk about, kind of embracing that human side of us as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
sorry, carry on.
No, well, I wrote down today, I was going to share this because it came to me on a different thing I was doing, but we try so hard to prove to someone, for the first part of our lives, we try so hard to prove to someone, anyone, that we exist. See my body, I have to make it pretty. See my job, my car, my success, my Facebook likes. And then when that doesn't do it, then we give up on that and try to prove that none of us exist to level the playing field, right? Went through that one too.
Yeah.
But the Goldilocks version is the balance in between.
Yeah.
Knowing that we're making it all up, but playing with our humanness, playing with our existence, you know, playing with how can I exist today?
Yeah, that was kind of my journey with the principles, because when I, very much like you, I kind of dived into self-help and done all of that, and kind of when I actually had chronic fatigue as well. So it was like, yeah, this is going to fix me. And then I realized, no, that's not going to fix me. It's not working so well. And again, I came across for me, it was the principles. I came across and heard something in that. But for a time it was like, oh, well, it's just a thought, it doesn't matter. And so it kind of almost was like that kind of, almost, I want to say, like a spiritual bypassing, kind of like you're kind of talking about there, I think, which again, that is also kind of feels now more like a judgment of of that, like the word spiritual bypassing feels like a judgment. But it was kind of like, I then realized, oh no, well, you know, we are kind of wisdom and all of this beautiful stuff, but at the same time we're human and we get to choose how we want to dance. So that includes, for me, embracing all of the messy stuff that comes up that we don't particularly feel good in, as well as like the fun and the joy. So I don't know how you see that.
Yeah, that whole wisdom thing gets really, you know, there's a lot of like, I was walking my dog before this call, and I have a little Boston Terrier, and sometimes when he's taking a poo, he walks, like he scoots, like he's got that hunched over thing, and he keeps walking, you know, when he's struggling a bit. And this voice out of nowhere in my head goes, "You need a magazine, buddy?" And I just laughed, and I was walking, and I was wondering to myself, as you do when you're in this kind of world, who said that?
Mm.
You know, and who laughed? Like, was it wisdom? Was it my, you know, you don't think of your God self or your true self as being that real and that human to say something like, "You want a magazine, buddy?" But I didn't say that.
Yeah.
I was the one who laughed at it.
I love that. Yeah.
You know, so, and when I'm writing and that thing, when the gap is closed and I am really one with that playful, hilarious thing inside of me,
Yeah.
terms come out of me that I could never have thought of. They didn't come from Karen,
Mm.
because they came out of nowhere. I wrote in a blog once that something gave me a soul boner, and I laughed because I'm like, that's freaking brilliant. Like, what better way to describe a state of awe? You know, it wasn't mine though. I was the vehicle from which it came out. I was the one who laughed at it, but it was God.
Yeah.
It was my true self. It was something very deep. So when you say the difference between wisdom and humanness, I think they're one.
Yeah. No, I do
It
agree.
feels like two
Yeah.
when we're taking over the show.
Yeah.
But the most brilliant stuff, the creative stuff in life, the you know, and you can get so wrapped up in words, and is it this, is it that, is it form, is it formless, is it this, you know, I don't know. But the only thing I know to be true, I don't even know really. What do I really know to be true? I don't even know if
Yeah.
there's wisdom. That's just a word that I'm using to describe one thing, and somebody else could be using it to describe something totally different.
Yeah.
But I do know the feeling.
Yeah. And I
Like,
think
I
we all
do know
describe
that.
that feeling in our own human version of it. Like we have our own labels for it and they're all different. That's how it feels.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, well, exactly. So instead of misinterpreting one person's word for it's going to be this, and like the difference between feeling and sensation,
Yeah.
emotion, and you know, so you could get all wrapped up in that, and people really go down rabbit holes and
Yeah.
try to figure that out and untangle spaghetti in order, because if I get this, then I'll have my peace and well-being. If I can get the difference between sensation and feeling and emotion, no. You know, when you good, the better you feel, the more that gap is closed,
Yeah.
and the more you are in alignment with your true self. And from that place, that wu wei place, you know, that the Taoist word for, I think it's kind of like unforced, without effort.
Mm.
But it doesn't mean a laissez-faire, sit on your butt all your life and don't do anything kind of thing. It's that effortless effort.
Yeah.
It's the judo, you know, of like, judo is based on, you take somebody at their maximum physical extension and you just add a little muscle and throw them across the room. It's that, it's that kind of effortless effort when it's ready and it's taking the lead. It's sailing versus rowing.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it's funny because we, again, like a lot of my clients, and particularly this week actually, have kind of talked about permission and like, oh, I really need permission to be able to have fun and create that fun for myself. And it's like, but what is permission? Like, what even is that? Like,
and what kind of answers did you get? Or what is yours? What do you think they mean?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's an interesting one though, because I again, kind of like your story speaks to me of that idea that like when you were in the illusion of who you thought you were, it felt like there was like no permission to be who you were in a way.
Yeah, it was, I didn't even know I had permission.
Yeah.
I just thought that that's where the white noise came down to a loud roar, but now it's like in everything.
Yeah.
Like, I hated motherhood for the longest time. I hated it before that puddle of snot and tears moment. And it was because I was trying to do it. I thought I needed to put them in swimming and piano and the travel sports and, authentically buy one of those swim taxi to my honor roll student bumper stickers and have the family avatars in the back window. And I was the cookie mom and, all that stuff. I over volunteered at the school to make the other moms feel inferior to me, always outdoing. And I didn't like it. And then after that moment, when I gave up trying to be the good mom, I loved it because I didn't make them do anything they didn't want to. If there was tension in my nervous system, I've gotten to hone my feeling for this, feeling my way. If there's tension, I kind of stop and go, where am I holding a gap open here? And it's because, oh, I'm worried we'll be late. I'm rushing my kid in the bathroom because I'm worried I'll be late because I'm worried what the teacher's going to think about us.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Take your time, and forget the research. What's your experience? My kids seemed really happy in front of the TV, and the funny thing is, if you let them go, they're safe there. They get to see the world. There's no danger. And then when they got older, I'm reading all this research that says, make them put down they shouldn't have a phone. Or, a little lesser version of that is make them have technology free moments in their day. And then, and I'm like, tension, holding the gap. What, because that seemed like a lot of work to me after I'd already gone down the road of giving them a phone. And now I have to undo it. And it felt like a punishment to me because they really like me on their phone. And now they're going to ask me for stuff. So I kind of let it go. I actually wrote a blog about it. You can read it on my website. It's called What If It's Not Our Idea? What if it's not our job to figure it out? Because what I saw happen was, because they have access to technology and other people and ideas through technology, they themselves found that this is not good for me. They themselves started, their wisdom was, their true self was going, this feels icky. They voluntarily now put their stuff down and have technology free moments. And it's not coming from mommy nagging you and telling you, it's a thou shall.
Yeah.
And my kids are listening to Alan Watts. I didn't find Alan Watts until I was in my mid 30s during that thing. They're listening to it at 12, 14, and they really like it.
That's cool.
So I kind of like, that's not my job either. So the research says, but what's your experience?
Yeah.
Because I've got a stack of books. I've got one in here on being a raw frugitarian, one of my diet books. I love the science, and I'll read it and go, oh, that really makes sense. Wow, we really are kind of like primates, and maybe we should just eat fruit and bugs and stuff like that. And then one that says, stay away from fruit, eat all fat and protein and whatever. And they really both have pretty sound science behind them.
Yeah.
Who do you know? Just read it for play and for entertainment and for your own interest. But
that really speaks to me, because I'm kind of like, for me, it makes sense that they're we're all pointing in a direction, but there isn't necessarily one truth. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's like even the principles is just a set of principles that's kind of giving form to something that we can't really explain, but there's a feeling to it. So I don't know if that's kind of what you're pointing towards, but
yes, ma'am. 1,000 keys that open the same door. And I don't know if I call them 1,000 truths. And I think there's only one truth, and that's your experience.
No.
I mean, how can you really know what's true unless you're experiencing? Everything else is history.
Yeah, and that's
it's what you've been taught.
Yeah, I always kind of point people back to, well, what's true for you? Like, that's really the only thing that matters, because we're here to embrace this life, and that's kind of, that's how it feels to me.
Yeah, and then the argument would be, well, if then there should be anarchy, then if everybody was just operating under their own truth, but if the truth is your experience and your feeling, I found that most people who get in touch stop beating the crap out of themselves for not being what the world told them they ought to be, and come home to themselves and their own truth and experience. Then who they are overflows in altruism and service and kindness, and it's that thou shall. So following the feeling kind of takes care of everything. Closing the gap and discovering more of who you are and letting that lead. And I'm pausing because I'm like, I think that's the thing that wants to lead. And it's all of our ideas of what should be that keep us away from it.
Even the anger.
Go on.
Because you talked earlier about when you were arguing and kind of judging yourself for expressing yourself in that.
With the defensiveness?
Yes.
Yeah, because I'm human.
Yeah.
I mean, getting rid of anger ain't in the cards.
Yeah.
Getting rid of frustration, jealousy, guilt, shame. I mean, it just ain't in the cards. You're human. You came here for all of it.
That's it. And for me, it's just an experience. It's just an experience of life. And I think that's what Sid was pointing to, really, in saying that we don't need to be afraid of our experience of life, because
I think that's the most important thing, Nicole. Like, I feel shame with 75% of the stuff that comes out of my mouth. I mean, seriously, but the thing is, caring, I did this program recently called Care Less, and the dirty little secret that everybody found, because I thought, I'm going to care less about what people think of me and just be myself, right? Well, really, the care less that makes you, I think, am I swearing too much? I was about to say. It's one of my favorite words. I have to say it. The thing that makes people unfuckwithable is not that they don't care what anybody else thinks. They just stop caring that they care. You stop caring because, like you said, it's just an experience. It's just you go through it. Oh, that feels a little weird, or that's uncomfortable, whatever. But you don't do everything in your power to not feel that emotion. You just see that's, you don't have to be afraid of that experience or that emotion, and that's what makes you. It's like the tree swaying in the storm. If it was just stiff and uneffwithable, and it would snap. But you are truly uneffwithable if you can go with the feeling and not be afraid of it. And know that the only thing that's telling you, that shame, that frustration, that anger, that guilt, is just telling you, because your true self isn't feeling that. It's the bumpers on the side of the highway just telling you're off course. And sometimes it takes a couple hours or a day or so to get back. And that's okay too.
No, I completely agree. And that's something that after I kind of went through that, well, it's just a thought, it doesn't matter, I then began to see, because at the time I was going through a divorce. And so I went off traveling for 4 months. And that was really when I began to see that actually, all of this experience of life is, absolutely okay. Like, it's not going to break us. And there's kind of a richness to it for me. And so that's really when I began to see, no, it's actually, we're human and we can kind of embrace all of that. So I totally love what you've said there.
And you hang on, I'm hearing all kinds of excuse me. hearing all kinds of background noise and voices, but that's my children.
I wondered if it was your tortoise, to be honest.
No, Tomato. But who could have orchestrated Tomato's return like that? I mean, sorry, everybody. Tomato is my tortoise. He was missing for 14 months. He ran away. I think he got horny. We got him as like a baby tortoise, and I think he was just really reaching like tortoise adolescence or something, and we let him wander around the house, and somehow he escaped. And we were all devastated, and 14 months later he gets sucked back into the world, and he's fine, and it's a miracle. But when we say, the thing that you just reminded me that I was going to say before, am I prattling on too much?
No.
When you said divorce, playing with ourselves, playing with our experience, playing with our humanness, not getting how to do it from any book or any mentor or any cultural, like letting it with a capital I lead. Yeah. I mean, that was my most recent experience. Like, it was, dare I say, playful. And it was, I mean, Frank and I met, we were 12 when we met. And everybody in high school, junior high and high school knew us as Frank and Fritz. Frank, like as soon as we met, we were soulmates, but not the kind that should get married. Like we were just both kind of different. Both started working early at like the age of 10. Both had the same kind of family, whatever. And we just gelled, and we stayed friends until we got married at the age of, we started dating, I think at 27. And it was like, I just wrecked it. It was just like, because with the M word, you bring all these expectations, what it means to be a good wife and, a good mother. And now his lover always should have been his career. I mean, the man loves to work. He's so good at it. I mean, he's like Mozart with business. And me, I'm like, let's go to the airport. Where are we going? I don't know. Pack a bag. We'll figure it out when we get there, And he was, and I would say I'm a tent in the desert and he's a suite at the Ritz. I took him hiking once and he proclaimed at the top of the mountain, the only hike I will ever do from now on is from the front of the Ritz-Carlton and to my Porsche. That is Frank's kind of hiking.
Yeah.
Mine is a death march, like something you don't know if you're going to make it through or not. So yeah, we both forgot ourselves and left ourselves and made it more important to disappoint ourselves than our spouse. And then then there was resentment and there was like, blah, and let's have a kid and see if we could fix it. And there was more. And then it was just like one day, like, all right, let's just get divorced.
Yeah.
And Frank's not exactly where I am, but he kind of knows if he just kind of follows along, it'll be okay. I mean, not always, it's not that simple, but we did this weavorce thing. I mean, some people on this call might be like horrified at how lightly you can take such a big deal. But the whole time I'm like, no, there's just, LegalZoom.com. Oh, weavorce. Yeah, we could do it ourselves, apparently. Okay. So we did the thing. And the hardest thing where I had the most, what everybody tells you how it ought to be in my head, was there's this place on the paperwork when we're filling it out that you check a box that I waive my right forever to any kind of maintenance or alimony and whatever. And there's the voices in my head going, you can't make it on your own. You haven't worked full time. You've moved, and then you've moved 17 times in 19 years for him, and he owes you, and blah, 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 blah. And it was like, shh.
Yeah.
No, I don't want anything from you. It was that expectation that wrecked things in the first place. Whatever you do is yours, and I trust that this thing has my back.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
And it was the most oof. And it was like, I think the last thing in that process, in the divorce process itself, that was just like Frank and Fritz. We're because that was, I want you to live your best, most inspired life. How do I make that possible? Yeah. And vice versa. And it was actually really beautiful. And yeah. And the other playful thing was, I didn't look at one textbook about we're not telling the kids, we're not telling their lives aren't going to change. We're not going to tell them for at least a year, because they have all these ideas of what that means because they've seen how everybody else does it. So if we tell them during or before, they're going to, be scared and traumatized and whatever, because they're going to make up what it's going to be like.
Yeah.
So 14 months later, it was just like a couple weekends ago, I'm driving back with my kids from Cleveland. We were staying at this hotel in Utah, and it's just time. Oh, Frank said, how are we going to do this? And I'm like, well, what we don't do is how everybody says to do it. You sit the kids down and you make it a big dramatic thing. And you say, now we have something very difficult to tell you, children, and whatever. And then you're telling them how to feel, you know? And he goes, okay, yeah, I'm okay. You do it. So Frank volunteers me to tell them on my own. So we're in this hotel room in Utah, and I'm like, it's 9:00 p.m. I'm like, kids, turn off your devices for a second. You know, turn down the TV. And they're like, what? Are you pregnant? And I'm like, no, I'm divorced. And they all go, oh. And I'm like, have been for over a year. And I told them a little bit of the story and how, you know, how much we love each other. And your guys are like still like best friends. Like, you guys still, Mom, he still calls you babe. I'm like, yeah. And he still like sleeps in the same bed with me as when he's home. I mean, do you think that would? They're like, oh. And my middle one goes, Mom, that's like really intriguing. And the youngest one goes, wow, you guys are really good at that. And the oldest one goes, I'm waiting for trauma. I don't feel any, but I reserve my right to feel trauma.
I think that's my favorite response. Wow, that's an amazing story. Yeah. It's just like total freedom. It feels like there's such a liberation in truth, that feels like. Yeah.
And it horrifies and terrifies a lot of people, because it's really scary to let go of the permission and the scaffolding of how it ought to be.
Yeah.
You know?
So true. I love that story. That was very cool. And thank you for sharing that. I'm just wondering if there's a good time to open up to questions, because I can see a hand raised from Tom. So I think.
Oh my gosh, I'm prattling on for that was like warp speed.
There we go.
Oh. Hi there.
Hi.
How are you?
Hi, Karen. Nice to meet you. This has been really, really delightful. Thank you.
Likewise.
And you know, some of the things I'm not even sure what my question is, but it's something you were talking about earlier spurred something on in me, and I guess it has to do around health. And you know, when I first learned about the principles about a year or so ago, it was really a big help for me. Like, I recovered from a really major depression, you know, really, really horrific time. And, you know, I never really expected that learning about the principles would really have any impact on my health necessarily. Although, you know, I kind of believe if you have less stress, you're probably, you know, doing better. But one of the things that was really funny that happened with me was I'd had a couple of new health challenges about a year ago that were diagnosed. And they were things, without going into detail, they were basically things, you know, that I'm told, well, these are not going to get any better. Like, this is the way it's going to be. And where the principles really came in for me was, I remember once I was just kind of doing something like laying in bed, and I was just thinking like, oh my God, this is so hard. Like, I hate this. It's so horrible. But then I realized, like, right on the heels of that, it said, yeah, in your mind it is. And it was so funny because in that moment, I was like totally comfortable in bed. You know, nothing was bothering me. And so I would say that's something that has really helped me a great deal. Because as I go through things, I do have things going on. You know, I would like them to be different. But then again, that's even, you know, that's kind of a thought as well. And it's just so interesting to see that. So it's kind of helpful in a way. But anyway, that's just something, I don't know if you have anything to say about that. That's just something that came up as you were talking.
If I said everything I have to say about that, it would be like trying, like a fire hose is at the back of my head and there's just a straw right here.
So we'll have to do this again then.
Yeah, actually you can contact me, but I'd be happy to talk to you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that somebody told you, and this is not a bang against a doctor or whatever. People get into the medical profession because they want to heal. That's why I did. But we're also taught, I almost said 10. It's actually such a small amount of what's possible. And I say this with authority of what I've experienced and the miracles that I've researched, and then the miracles that I've witnessed in the programs that John and I do based on this research we did. The doctor gives you a voodoo curse. These things will never get better. And we believe it. And it's not true. Now, it might be true that it might not get better, but it also might be true. It's not true that it won't ever, or it can't. Because I've seen people in stage 4 esophageal pancreatic liver cancer have a massive insight or a letting go or something, and it goes away where it was impossible. So many thousands and thousands. I don't care if it's hypertension or cancer or hemorrhoids. You know, you're told the doctors give us the voodoo curse. You have this long to live. This is something you're going to have to deal with for the rest of your life. That's not true. Wow. It might be true, but it's not absolutely true. I had a girl on a program. I do this program called Naked. It's the Naked Community, and it's about closing the gap. And she was talking about a foot injury she's had for a while. And we talk about all random stuff on there. So this particular call, we were talking about the placebo effect and the nocebo effect. And she has been trying to heal as a playful experiment because she was told she needed surgery on her foot and she doesn't want it. So she's got a foot in her cast, and she's just been holding it lightly and playing with this meditation and this stuff like that, whatever. And her foot's starting to feel better. And it's been feeling better than it has forever. And then she called the orthopedic surgeon. She had to call the orthopedic surgeon, and she's like, you know what? I think I'm going to be ready to get this cast off in a couple weeks. Like, I've been walking. It feels better than it has in a year. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's not possible. That's going to need surgery. And wouldn't you know it, the next day it felt broken again, and it got worse the next day. And so we had to call him, like, voodoo curse. She's like, I know. What's true? What's true, Tom? The only thing that you know to be true is your experience. You know, and sitting there in bed and going, oh, this is horrible, and this means this, and this means that. Well, that's coming from the voice of knowledge in our head, you know, of everyone else's knowledge. But I love what you were saying is there was a moment you're like, hang on a second, because you tapped into your experience in that moment, which was, I'm comfortable. I feel actually pretty okay here, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't want to say don't listen to the doctor. You know, this is not, you know,
Sure.
Disclosure. This is, you know, I am not a doctor. I only play one on TV. This is not a suitable substitute for medical, blah, 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 you know. So if you'd like to chat about that sometime, let me know. But
I would love to connect with you, Karen. Thank you so much, and thank you, Nicole. This has been so brilliant.
Awesome. No, thank you, Tom. That's great. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, I love that because when I had chronic fatigue syndrome as well, it was kind of like I just didn't accept the label. And so it kind of, again, seeing the principles helped, but yeah, just really never accepted that label. And I think that's what kind of helped me to kind of, well, I mean, I listened to myself, and I feel like it was the listening again, that kind of listening to what was true for me helped me to overcome that, basically. And does anybody else have any other questions that wants to come on and ask something? We'll open it out to anyone else. We have a few comments. Let me just have a look in the chat and see if there's anything in there. We just have people saying, love that, Karen. The guinea pig has escaped.
I think it's probably just like dying of thirst because my children forgot to give it water or something. It complains. It's a diva guinea pig.
Of course. Yeah, actually, you reminded me as well when you were just talking, when I was getting divorced, I had that moment of kind of sitting there expecting that I should be feeling really depressed and like everything was going wrong, and I actually felt the complete opposite. So that's kind of my similar moment of like, oh, I don't actually feel how I think I should feel. And then I kind of felt guilty for not feeling how I thought everybody else thought I should feel. It's like, just this moment of peace.
Yeah. And chronic fatigue is like, what you said about not believing the label is so important to healing from it. I mean, like, one of the biggest deterrents to healing from chronic fatigue syndrome is membership into a chronic fatigue support group.
Yeah.
Because you all get together and reinforce the speak, you know, and but the label is so important for some people because you're told, oh, it's all in your head. There's nothing wrong with you and you know that, like me, I couldn't remember. I'm 37 years old. I have dementia.
Yeah.
You know, I couldn't stay awake for an entire day, and somebody turned up the gravity and I couldn't heal from stuff. And I was just, and then somebody finally gives you the label and you're like, oh, thank God I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
You know, because everybody thought I was crazy. And then you try to
make sense of it. Like, we want something to make sense of, like, why we're feeling how we're feeling. And
now we understand. I mean, I love the work that John and I do together, because, you know, people who've been sick, homebound, all these ailments for like 40 years. You know, one of the ladies on the study was sick got diagnosed when she was 26, and went through the study at 66. And within like 8 weeks, she like she could now live her golden years, you know, like live the rest of her life free from this label.
Yeah.
You know, and these, anyway, it's just been awesome. But yeah, the label's just the thought. But it's a very, you know, it's an ICD-9 code. They have to put a label on something so that they can submit it to insurance, so that they can treat it according to this algorithm.
Yeah. No, that's so true. Yeah. Does anybody else have any questions that wants to come on? Just before we finish. I don't know if there's anything else that you want to add on what you've been sharing, Karen. I feel like there might be some more questions that I had, but I can't remember them right now.
Well, that means we're probably complete. And I think sometimes listening to me is like drinking from a fire hose. So give everybody a rest.
You have this amazing research with John as well, don't you?
Yeah, it's published. It's getting published in, peer review. This is the first research project. That could be a whole nother call about the divine leading us both unwittingly down this research rabbit hole, so that we could show how the mind and psychology affect the biology, how we literally can think ourselves sick. Not it's all in your head as you're making it up, but that which is going on in your head has a profound effect on your biology.
Yeah. That's an important distinction, because so often in chronic fatigue we get called out on it being made up, and and it's all in our heads, and that used to really offend me, because it's like, but it's not like, but then you kind of when you understand the 3 principles, you just see that that's kind of how our experience is being created. Like, we're creating our experience all of the time. And it kind of made more sense to me like that. I don't know if that, how I've just put it, makes sense, but I think
it can be summed up. I sum it up like in 3 ways. You know, this is the last thing I'll add, just to bring the research part. I mean, there's 3 things that make us sick. There's physical stuff, you know, blunt force trauma, toxins that get into our bodies from food or the environment or whatever, heavy metals, whatever. So physical things that make us sick. Microbial things, bacteria, parasites, viruses, fungus, you know, all that kind of micro critters can make us sick. And then the psychology. Now, our immune system, our amazing, complicated, when I look at the biochemical pathway of the body, it's like looking at the cosmos. It's like, how does it know to do all that? It's our amazing immune system can clear out the toxins. It can also combat the critters. Now, sometimes we need the help from medicine to, you know, take an antibiotic or an antiviral, or, you know, rebalance this or that. But for the most part, really good at doing it on its own. Now, when the psychology is over engaged all the time on hypervigilance or red alert, either for whatever, for what do people think of me? What's the world? How am I doing? How's the world think I'm doing? Or is that a symptom? You know, people who have a lot of health anxiety are constantly monitoring themselves for symptoms.
Yeah.
Life is a sexually transmitted terminal condition. It has symptoms. It has sensations and feelings, and we get banged and sick. But if you're constantly on red alert for, is that this? Is that this? Is that this? That hypervigilance of the psychology will not only prevent the immune system from doing this stuff, but will also cause
Yeah.
inflammation.
Yeah, that's
So
very
that's why the 3 principles is so great in the immune system, but that's kind of what we did in the research, is chilled that out.
Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, no, definitely. Wonderful. Thank you very much. And so,
Yeah, sorry, little punch at the end.
yeah, no, that's amazing. And where can people find out about that research? Because has it been kind of shared yet, or is it coming soon?
No, it's a quarterly journal, so I bet next quarter it's going to be published. It's an APA, American Psychological Association journal called Spirituality in Clinical Practice.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's going to be, that'll be out in, and the Foundations of Health program that's based on that research is being turned into a self-study and a community, so people can get access to that and not have to spend a buttload on.
Yeah, and what just comes to mind there as you're saying about all of that is that it really reinforces that idea of the fact that we are in human bodies, and that's there to be embraced, just as it is to, you know, we kind of understand how that gets kind of like inflamed by the mind, I guess, as you were kind of just describing it there. But it does reinforce that we are human. So
Yes, ma'am. And I won't do it now, but there is a biological explanation of how holding yourself away from that true self creates inflammation in the body. It's that friction in the nervous system and the red alert, that how the world said I ought to do it creates inflammation in the body. And when you do this, that is the stuff of radical remission, because it totally returns homeostasis to the body. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So just live in our truth is the answer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it won't let you live forever, but you'll certainly have a lot of freedom with how you're living or how things are, you know.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much. And where can people hear about you as well?
Ask a question.
Oh, yeah, sure.
You're talking about the program being a self-study right now. I relate to so much of what you've talked about today. I could talk for an hour. That's why I didn't think I was going to speak, because I didn't think I could speak. But I have like I've always had asthma and allergies, and in the last couple of years they've gotten a lot worse. And this year I got these rashes that it seems like I get rid of one and another one pops up, and it's like, what the heck? And I'm like, when you talk about the health rules, like how to be healthy, I became vegan last October, partly because I felt like I wanted to be more healthy. Duh. And we watched documentaries, and there was like a bunch of synchronistic events. Like we met this person, he inspired us. We watched these things and thought, oh my God, we can't be a part of that anymore. Anyway, it's been satisfying in one sense and very limiting in another. And in social situations, I feel like an outcast. And so I don't know how to come to terms with that either. But I sense that there's so much thinking going on and so much trying to live by rules. And literally within the last couple of days, I just had this vision in my mind that in every area of life, whether it be like you said, the kind of wife I'm going to be, the mother I'm going to be, if I'm going to be helping somebody in the world as a coach or a whatever, they're all like these boxes that we put ourselves in. And it's like, it doesn't make my life any bigger. It just keeps making it smaller. And I just don't know how to get out of it. And I wonder, because I've thought about taking you and John's program, and I didn't realize it was open. I had checked before, it wasn't. But I wondered, can I get through my shit on my own? I don't know. Like, literally, can I get through that program?
No, I don't know. I think the things that point to the thing in you that doesn't need any help is the thing that, if you don't want to read another book and do another thing and pile on another philosophy and put another box on you. Would actually, you want to look for the things that point back to the thing in you that doesn't need anybody's help.
Yeah.
And that's what, a lot of these, there's a lot of great programs. I mean, I love the Foundations of Health program is just, I spend a lot of time with coaches. I'm kind of like a coach's coach and some in the area of the body, because it's just a blind spot for a lot of people, you know? Yeah, I get relationships. Yeah, I get that. But this meat suit, this is solid. This is going to die. That's scary to me. I need to take care of, you know, like, so that's the foundations of health, has a lot to do with, we're all saying the same thing. It's just through the mouthpiece of the body, you know?
Right. And I definitely feel like it's just a thinking thing.
Yeah.
Like you said,
well, Nicole was, you know, she was just asking how to get, for anybody who wants, I do a free 30-minute exploration. If you want to talk more about, if you didn't get to ask a question, or if you have something that you didn't want to talk about in front of people, feel free to contact me. My website is KarenDiMarco.com. But there's, if you sign up for, it's broken, just email me hello@KarenDiMarco.com, because I have a website person who fixes that stuff for me, and I'm meeting with him next Tuesday. So, but hello@KarenDiMarco.com, and you can, you know, we can set up a time to talk.
Okay.
And Paula,
blabbing.
Paula, just
no, you're not.
Well, because I know you're on the Self-Rediscovery Foundations program. So when you're kind of working through that, because I know you're catching up, I'd be really interested to hear what you hear about that, because you might kind of hear something in what I've shared in there as well, or what the group shared in there. So let me know as well, if any of that helps. And also just to say, because you're saying, you know, I don't know how to get out the box. The good thing is that you know, we create the boxes. So.
Right. And I would like to add too, when you talked about emotions earlier, I've never been one to have anger be an issue. And with a lot of the stuff going on in the world, it's like this, like, anger just kind of like bubbles up out of me. And the good thing is having been part of the 3 principles for not very long, since February-ish, right before, it was perfect timing, just before all the shit hit the fan, basically. But it's like, I'm okay with it. It's like interesting. I'm watching it. Even my husband's saying, gosh, what's wrong with you? Like, I've never seen this side of you. And I've even joked about it and saying, like, wow, yeah, like the wisdom must be saying, whoa, look at this. Wow, this is different. This is fun. You know, like, this is a new experience. Yeah. And it's kind of okay. I mean, sometimes I feel like I have to maybe kind of reel it in a little bit, but but it's basically, I'm by myself. It's just, I'm watching what's going on, going, my God, what is going on here? You know, like that kind of thing. But but it's been interesting just kind of watch it.
Paula, that's a really useful, a good way to use the timeline into the past, is when people think, oh, I'm not getting this, oh, I'm not getting this, I'm trapped in all these boxes, whatever. Look over the timeline. You know, once the serum is in, we've got the rest of our lives for it to do more and more. But people make up like this arbitrary time frame of what, like I was saying before, I'm here today and tomorrow it should look like this, but there's a huge leap I have to get over. No, the serum's in, it's already doing the work. Look back on the timeline that you were just pointing to. It's already in. You kind of just sit back, you know, hold it lightly. It's already doing its thing.
And also honoring like what you have seen as well, because so many people don't, you know, they kind of see something and then just skim over it. And I think I said that when you shared that story with us, like it's amazing to hear like that different experience of anger, and anger being okay, because I know that was something you brought to one of the lives, wasn't it?
It's actually almost felt empowering. It definitely has, where I think before 3Ps, I would have felt bad about it, guilty about it, like, ooh, that's not a good thing, or that's not spiritual, or, you know. And I am struggling with what's going on and feeling like, you know, I want to be a force for good and for love and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know how to come to terms with all this that's going on. And even that, in a way, for me right now is okay. It's just like I feel like there's this lack of clarity. but it's okay. It's almost like, well, one day it'll be there.
But also,
And it's
like,
okay to be in that space of not knowing, because this is like a transition. It's like a transition of what's going on in the world is so bizarre, like
but also
nothing we've ever
anger.
gone through before. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
I think everybody's kind of feeling like, wow, how do I deal with this? You know?
But anger is almost like that that feeling of aliveness, and that kind of, it could be mistaken for passion, you know. That's just another label for
Yeah.
it. It kind of drives
Yeah.
into, you know, moving in, you know, in a way that can change the world. So again, it's just another label for something.
Right. True. Yeah.
Yeah, and if when in doubt of what to do in the world of matter, you know, we're all particle and wave. You know, it's, you can make much more significant changes in the world. I know this sounds kind of nebulous, but it's proven by like quantum mechanics, and like Joe Dispenza talks about this in a pretty easy to understand way. But the more wave you are rather than particle, the more your change that's occurring, that you're contributing to, than you even know, rather than getting pulled into the density of the world of matter and all the drama and trauma and chaos that's going on, that gets us really dense. And then the only thing you can move is this thing in front of you, or this protest sign, or this, you know, whatever. But when you're going inside and raising your vibration, again, don't have to believe this. This is what I believe in. It's nebulous stuff. But the more you're raising you, the more you're contributing to the increased vibration of the whole thing.
Right.
In a much more powerful way.
Right.
And there's not an excuse to not do anything. It just means, like, if you don't know what to do, don't worry about it, because you can always do something, you know, the most important thing, which is right here.
Yeah. And even when I experience the anger, that new phenomenon for me, it really does feel like it just flows through, like whoop, it comes through and it goes out. I'm kind of not hanging on to it. So that's a good thing. Yeah.
One of the most underreported things about Sydney Banks, which I would think would be the most helpful, is that he could be a real grouch. He got angry and like he would get really angry.
Yeah.
Of course, you know, but the refractory period, you know, it was an experience, like you were just saying, it came through him, and, you know.
It was done. Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much for today. You were wonderful. I really enjoyed it. Got a lot out of it.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it too.
Thanks, Paula.
Thank you.
And I signed up for your summit on your website, and I can't wait to go through all these.
Yeah.
I can't wait to go through the vault.
There's some good ones. Yeah. Amazing. Well, if you let me know the best link for where people can find out about you, I'll pop that in the vault as well with the replay of this, so that people can then head to find more about you as well.
Yeah, it's easy. It's just Karen DiMarco with an I.com, and everything's on there. And like I said, the sign up for my newsletter, whatever that says, doesn't work. So just the email's on there, though. You can email me through the website.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. It's been a fun conversation.
Really.
Yeah, thanks so much. So if you need to leave, I'm just going to do the announcements about who's next and all of that sort of stuff. So it's entirely up to you. If you need to go, then
no, I want to hear who's next.
Perfect. So next Friday, the 26th of June, same time, I'm going to be chatting with Ankush Jain, who is here to explore money without boundaries, and how we can do the doable. Because he was talking about how kind of creating the impossible sometimes suggests that it's not possible, but it's doing the doable. He's decided, which is kind of cool. So this is going to be really an interesting exploration of something that I think almost sometimes looks as though it's the exception to the 3P rule. It's like kind of busting the myth about how much abundance there really is beyond our thinking. And then we also have the amazing Marnix Powell sharing his story about manifesting miracles through inspired action. And then we also have a couple more people, including Leanne Brooke Tyler, who's here to talk about something about the soul being soul led or something like that. But it's very cool. We only discussed the topic today, so it's not in my mind. But yeah, so Leanne's amazing as well. Yeah, so we've got quite a few exciting people coming up as well. And yeah, just a final invitation. I've got my Self-Rediscovery Foundations program starting in July, the next round. So that is very exciting. Again, kind of getting a grounding in who we are and how we can light ourselves up from wisdom. So a little bit of kind of dancing in our humanness. And also my Unravel program, which is all about dancing and playing in our humanness. So that starts in July, and there is also a round in October as well. So kind of accepting signups for both of those, so have a little look if those are calling to you. Yeah, they're just beautiful. It's kind of really just unraveled from just playing and dancing with life, which is kind of where it's where it feels like, yeah, the joy is at. So so those are running soon, and that's pretty much what I've got to share today. So thank you so much again, Karen. And yeah, I'm gonna pop this up as a replay for everybody else who wants to catch up on it in the next few days, although I am moving house, so we'll see how that goes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
It's exciting. It's exciting.
Yeah.
I've done it many, many, many times. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. This was delightful. Thank you for listening to me, everyone.
Thank you so much, and have a good rest of the day as well, Karen.